Hey everyone, how you doing on this fine Sunday evening? Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good weekend. I've had this Cure album. I'm going to talk about the Cure tonight, obviously. I've had this Cure album on deck for a while. I've been planning on talking about it ever since I did the Disintegration video a couple weeks ago. I've had it in mind to talk about this record. And I was revisiting it today. I've heard this album many times in my life, but I like to try to revisit albums right before I do the video. And I listened to this today, and it dawned on me that most Cure albums in my life, in fact, all Cure albums in my life that I've heard, my opinion on them doesn't really waver. It always remains the same. Every Cure album, 12-inch, anything I've heard from them, they always have a very immediate effect. It's not, Cure albums don't really grow on you too much. Or you don't dislike them intensely right away. Well, let me take that back. A couple of Cure albums I have never been able to wrap my head around. All later albums, particularly their most recent album. That was when I realized that, yeah, I'm lost. Sorry for the glare here, by the way. I still have the original shrink wrap on here, so it's a little bit glary. But this album I've never wavered on it. I got this, it's funny, I was just looking at this today. I got this from the Columbia House Record Club. Do you remember that? Those of you who remember that shit? If you don't know, back in the 70s and 80s, there were these clubs. It was BMG and Columbia House. And they were record clubs. Basically, you would get this thing in the mail and it said, you can get 10 albums for a penny. And you were like, a penny? 10 albums? That sounds like a deal for me. I think I will buy some. So you'd tape a penny to a piece of paper and you'd mail it in and you'd pick 10 albums. And the albums you picked were like little stamps. Literally, like they had perforations on the end and you licked them and you stuck them on there and you're like, I would like these 10 albums, please. And they'd send them to you. You'd get 10 albums for a penny. The rub was you had to agree to buy, 8 more? Is that what it was? You always got 12 albums for a penny. I think it was 12. And then you had to buy, you were committing yourself to buy 8, you had to buy 8 more. And every month, they would send you their selections every month. And if you had to pick one. And if you didn't pick one every month, they would automatically send you the album of the month. Whatever they chose, whatever it was. And if you forgot to make a choice, they'd send you the album of the month and then they'd send you a bill. And the albums were always more expensive than they were in the record store. Like if a record store cost $10, it would be 18 through Columbia Record Club. So they were kind of giving you the illusion that you were getting a sweet deal. And you are at first, but over time, the deal lessens. Pretty much evens out. I still did it because I was a kid and it was exciting, especially those first. People would try to rejoin the club all the time. They'd use different addresses and, there was no internet back then. It was easier to do then. I think some people have succeeded in doing that. This is a Columbia, you probably can't see it. Let me see if I can show this. Where is it? Yeah. On the very bottom. You see that? Manufactured by Columbia House. I forgot. A lot of my records from the 80s, actually, I got from the Columbia Music Club. They stamped them. They had their own little unique stamp. Anyway, I'm rambling, but it was a little trip down memory lane when I was pulling the records out today. I remembered, oh yeah, this is a Columbia House. Anyway, this, with the exception of the Head on the Door and Disintegration, this would probably, and Pornography. Yeah, those three. I like those three better. This would be, if I were to rank the Cure albums, this would be number 4 for me. This is an epic album. It's huge. It's a double album. Lots of stuff to sink your teeth into here. 2 records worth, 18 tracks, lots of stuff, tons of stuff. Most of it works, some of it doesn't. Now that is my opinion, all right? If this is your favorite Cure album, I'm just giving you my opinion. I love this album. And this album is kind of a tale of 2 Cures. It's the 4 singles that came from this album are excellent. They're awesome. Arguably the most kinetic energy of any Cure single ever. They're just like off the rails, off the chain, kinetic energy. And then there's the rest of the album. Like the singles actually sound different sonically than the rest of the albums, the 4 singles. The rest of the album sounds more or less like a traditional Cure video. Or Cured songs. I was thinking of the video to Hot Hot Hot, which is pretty funny. That it popped in my mind, so I had a little slip there. The rest, the non-singles on here all have a vibe. They kind of sound like traditional Cure. A little moody, more synthesizer work, darker. Yeah, this album is a tale of 2 Cures. Robert Smith was a bit bipolar on this album. The songs, like, they drift very heavily, very quickly. They're over here, and then they're over here, and then they're over here, and then they're over here. But that's the allure of this album. To me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me is one of the most off-balance Cure albums. But that's why it's good, you know? You know what I'm saying? Sometimes that off-balance energy is very enticing. It makes you want to play it again and try to understand what's going on. Try to understand if there's a vibe going. There isn't really a fluid vibe on this record. But it doesn't matter because the songs are so good. I mean, Robert Smith was on a roll. All throughout the 80s. The guy he couldn't really write a bad song. He's that talented. His lyric, and this album is an angry album too. Would you agree with me on that? Those of you who are Cure fans, arguably this album is their angriest. I hear a lot of angst. Robert Smith is pissed off on this record. But he also wants to make big grand statements. Up to this point, you never heard so many grand statements on one record. In fact, I'd argue there are more grand musical statements on this Cure album than any other Cure album. The singles alone can prove that. This is a strange album, just generally, but for The Cure, I would argue it is their strangest. They're strangest, and yet they're most commercial in a lot of ways. All kinds of vibes, all kinds of avenues, all kinds of dark corners, all dark recesses of the mind getting explored here. It's a lot of fun 1 minute, and then it's super dark and angry the next. It's a fun album to listen to. I very much enjoy it. I felt that way when I first heard it in 1987 when I licked the Columbia House stamp and sent it away and received the record in the mail. I felt the same way then as I do now. I just listened to this today, and my opinion hasn't changed. This is a fun album. Really, really enjoy it. I'm going to show... It's a nice pressing too. You know, you get nice glossy inner sleeves. You get the lyrics. This is one of the ways you know Robert Smith was kind of pissed off when he did this album. You get to read the lyrics and you're like, oh yeah, he was angry. It seems like it to me. Lots of yelling, lots of growling on this album. You know, some labels for you. This came out on Elektra, as you can see from the label there. And, you know, this is probably 100 gram at the most. And you know what? It sounds great. I've talked about this before in my videos. People automatically assume it's 180 gram. That means it's amazing. No, that is not true. 180 gram pressings can be ruined just like any other gram. These are thin and paper-like, and they sound great. Records in the 80s from big record companies always sounded good. They had high quality control. Unlike now. Those of you who buy records now, it's one of the reasons I don't pick up as many records anymore. You never know what you're going to get. They love advertising 180 gram and limited edition and all that bullshit, but then you get it and you're like, really? This is awful. This sounds like toss. No thanks, I don't want it. Back then, you didn't have to worry about it. It's just, pressings were always solid. You could just depend on it. This, I'll show the singles in a minute, but obviously this is the US press. Anytime you see a Cure record on Elektra, automatically that means it's a US press. If you see that it's on Fiction, that's a UK press. Pretty easy to tell the difference, if you're ever curious about that. I'll show the singles here in a minute. My favorite songs on here, I love Catch. That was one of the singles, and I think that's a classic Cure track. You know, it's a single that might be arguably my favorite song on here. I really like Catch. The Smoke Pit I like. Hey You is one of the weak points, I think. Not one of the stronger Cure tracks. I'm not going to mention the singles right now. I'll get into those when I talk about the 12 inches. The Perfect Girl, that's a good one. The last side of the record seems to be the angriest. I think it's the second to last song, Shiver and Shake. That song, like Robert Smith, just seems like he's ready to pop. He's ready to explode. He's angry. Get the fuck out of my way version of Robert Smith. It's fun. Good song. Awesome guitar work on here too. I think Robert Smith is generally an underrated guitar player. Would you agree? He's really good. I mumbled about this in one of my past Cure videos. With the Cure, everyone lumps the Cure in with like new wave and, you know, sensitive pop. Yeah, get out of here. No. Listen to this record and then think of them that way. This is a hard rocking album, just like The Head on the Door before it. This album rocks. You need some hard rocking, pissed off vocals. Look no further. And this album has it. Yeah. Tell me what you think about this. If you're a Cure fan, is this your favorite album? I'd love to hear from you guys. I know you guys are Cure fans. This would be number 4 in my list. That doesn't mean it's not an awesome... We're talking about the Cure here. You know, you have to consider Disintegration, Head on the Door, and Pornography, which are brilliant. This, I think, is just a pube hair short of being brilliant. But it's damn close. Really awesome stuff. Now, these are the singles. Here is Just Like Heaven. Those of you who do not know this song, you should crawl out from under your rock now because you can't avoid it. Like In Between Days before it, it's an awesome song, but it's so played out. It's, you know, you can't escape it. B-sides are awesome too. The UK version of this has different B-sides. It's got the exact same cover. I'm not going to show both of them to you. But they have different B-sides. I'm trying to remember. Catch was a single, but only in the UK. It was not released here as a single. And the B-sides to Catch in the UK ended up on this, the US version. And then the UK 12-inch of Just Like Heaven had B-sides that popped up elsewhere. It's you basically have to have 4 different 12 inches to have all the B-sides. You know, is what it is. But yeah, the UK version looks just like this. I'm showing the US version here. I might be wrong about that B-side stuff too. I don't have the Catch 12-inch. I never got it because the B-sides popped up on a US 12-inch, and I don't remember exactly how the B-sides got distributed across all the different versions. I got confused at the time. I just wanted the songs. And I realized that if I had the US version and the UK version of Just Like Heaven, I had 4 different B-sides. So there you go. I didn't need the Catch UK 12-inch, because Catch is not remixed either. It's not really a track you remix. Catch is, every album, The Cure have like that one song that's almost like a cabaret act, you know? Catch is that track on Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. Like Caterpillar. You know, they always have those songs that are kind of slightly goofy with tongue-in-cheek lyrics. That's kind of what Catch is. This is just a kick-ass song here. This is the energy on this one. This is what I'm talking about, like energy just popping off all over the place. Japanese Dream is my favorite B-side on this album. And the extended version of this is really cool. The extended version you get on this is the same version you find on Mixed Up. Same version. To my knowledge, this is the only remix I've ever seen. It's not really a remix either. It's just an extended version of the album version. It's still excellent, and you get an amazing B-side, A Japanese Dream. This is the US edition. Yes. Why Can't I Be You? That's what I was talking about when it comes to the singles on Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. They're huge. Massive. Filling stadiums type songs. Why Can't I Be You? Just Like Heaven. Huge songs. Like Robert Smith, I think he knew how to draw people in to listen to his albums, and then he kind of browbeat you with all these other darker songs. That's why I like Robert Smith, honestly. I always felt like it was like a carrot and a stick kind of situation. He wrote songs like Why Can't I Be You and Just Like Heaven and Hot, Hot, Hot. And you went and bought the album, and then you had to hear the rest of the album, which had nothing to do with this sound. This was just, I mean, you don't get any bigger or louder or more rock and roll and funk and whatever else than this. One of the biggest songs he ever wrote. Arguably the biggest. And then this single. I love this song. The video is awesome. If you've never seen the video, check it out. I'll link to it in this video so you can see it if you've never seen it. Very funny. Robert Smith is hilarious too. Everyone thinks he's like a dark, depressing, gloom and doom dude. He's not at all. Great sense of humor. Those of you who watch South Park will know that this is true. And you know what I'm talking about. I'm going to let you discover that on your own if you don't know what I'm talking about. Google South Park and Robert Smith. You will not regret it. Awesome single. I love this song. It's just goofy. It's over the top. It's silly. It's also very well written and well executed and well produced. It's such a fun song. And the mighty Francois Kevorkian does remixes here. That's reason enough to pick this up. Francois Kevorkian is another name you need to know. He's worked... If you wonder why Depeche Mode's Violator sounds like it does, it's because of Francois Kevorkian. He's a dude who has been doing productions and remixes and his own songs since the 70s. And he's still around, and he's just one of those go-to guys. If you need your record to sound better, you go to Francois Kevorkian. The guy's a legend. Legend. Look him up. I've often thought about doing a video on Francois Kevorkian. Just him. Really deep diving and looking into the personnel behind these records, I think is interesting. Francois K, man. He does the mixes. There are 2 versions of Hot, Hot, Hot here, and then there's a mix of Hey You. In my opinion, probably the weakest song on the album. But there's still a mix of it here. I'll show the label really quickly. Not too much to see, you know. Hot, hot, hot. And that's exactly what this 12-inch is. It's hot as hell. Just fun. And like I mentioned before, the carrot and the stick. It's almost like Robert Smith, you know, he went out of his way to write 4 songs that he knew would be singles, and then created a double album around those singles that sounded nothing like these. Maybe you'll disagree with me, but to me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me is like 4 super hot, super big, super massive, super huge songs, and then the rest of it's really dark and angry and fucked up. That's why I like it. It's just it's a strange album for The Cure. It's not like anything else they ever wrote or did. And Robert Smith ended up being very disillusioned with the lack of what he thought the level of success it should have had. I talked about this in the Disintegration video, but I remember reading some interviews with him at the time, and Disintegration he had meant to be his last album. He was disappointed with the relative lack of success as he saw it with this album. And so at the time, he just was like, fuck it, I'm going to do one more album, and it was Disintegration, and then that album just blew the roof off everything, and the rest is history. Here we are. But an interesting time in The Cure's history. This came out in 1987, so what is that? You know, it's 36 years ago now. Man, I can't believe it's been that long. It doesn't seem like that long ago that I first picked this up from Columbia House and listened to it. But it's been 36 years. Time flies, man. Scary shit. Go give this another listen. It's fun. I'd argue this is the most fun Cure record. There's just so much to soak in. It's an oddity for them. I can kind of see why it didn't quite gain the momentum that Robert Smith may have hoped for. You can't really, I guess time has proven that you can't really write a couple of hit singles and then have everybody get into your message on your album when it's so dark and angry, because this is dark and angry. For a band that's known to be dark and angry, I would argue this is the darkest and angriest, with 4 of their biggest, happiest songs on it. Strange album. Go check it out again. Thanks as always. I'll talk to you next time.